Right, good evening again, everyone, and welcome to Testing with Espresso, Introduction to Espresso Test Automation Framework for Android. So we're going to start with the formal slide presentation. Let me do that. Perfect. Well, real estate. Okay, based on the people I see who joined, they all know who am I. If not, I'm Igor, the founder of BakeQA Training. Also the full-time employee at Tinder currently, live in LA, used to live in Bay Area. And I'm passionate about test automation, as you know, and not only that, passionate about software engineering in general, and teaching folks how to become successful people in this profession. So tonight, actually, I want to bring attention to framework which I've been using since its beginning. And it's not very, I would say, widely used among testers. It's mostly used among developers. And tonight you're going to see why it's much more powerful than other frameworks available for Android. And for those folks who've been like, jumping between Appium, Calabash, and other test automation frameworks, you'll see why Espresso is #1 choice amongst developer and why a lot of companies switching towards Espresso nowadays as the ultimate framework for Android automation. So the most important thing you have to understand, what's our actual instrumentation. I know a lot of people actually haven't used Android extensively as a developers, and they probably never heard about instrumentation. So instrumentation is the father of Espresso, right? So instrumentation APIs were available since beginning of Android API level 6, which is, I believe, Cupcake, since 2007. And they were available for driving UI automation. So if you hear about from developers instrumentation tests, that's what they mean Espresso nowadays. Okay, so if you look at the code on the screen, Espresso test, instrumentation test is nothing more than JUnit test. So originally they are part of like JUnit framework. They use JUnit 4, and the same JUnit 4 used for unit tests on Android as well as for the Espresso test, which are instrumentation tests. So whenever we're going to hear under context of the testing in Android, it's actually interchangeable. In my opinion, Espresso is actually almost like an integration framework rather than UI framework, because it allows you to do a lot of things under hood which other frameworks not, such as Appium, right? Appium more like black box automation, Espresso more like integration framework that allows you to do more things than other frameworks. So that's how the test the test runners look for the JUnit 4. So what is actually Espresso then? So you actually will be shocked that Espresso tests do not exist. A lot of people will say instrumentation. Espresso is just the name of a small layer around instrumentation. So there is a guy, his name is Valery, he's actually Russian too. He is originally worked at Google, now he's at Slack, I believe. So he invented this like 600-line code wrapper around instrumentation and called Espresso. And for a long time it was a closed API inside the Google. And in 2013, 14, around 2014, they actually opened to the those APIs to the public and became part of SDK. So there is no such thing as Espresso. It's not like separate framework. It's just a small wrapper around instrumentation, which is part of Android SDK. So you are part of Android development toolkit, right? Just like you are writing your code for the Android application, it's part of it. So it's not like separate entity. That's my point. So they do not exist, okay? So if you look at these two codes from on top, you will see instrumentation test without Espresso wrapper. You can see they're a bit bulkier. For those people who are aware with Java, you can see that you have to do a lot of declaration, heavy lifting in order to write a simple test. With Espresso uses the Hemcrest framework underhood, which has been there forever, to make more declarative style writing tests. So Espresso is easier than old instrumentation. And if you look at the test, they're very easy to read, right? Test my UI on view with ID button, perform click. It's almost like behavior driven tests like in Cucumber, right? So I think they are much more readable than old instrumentation tests. So you can see in comparison right here. So why Espresso is so famous, right, among developers? Why people start using it? So there are two things that actually will make your mind. So number one is that Android native test framework is actually 100% part of SDK, meaning this, it is every release of new Android SDK, right? It's always going to be a new change of Espresso. With other frameworks like Appium, third-party frameworks, which is not native, you always have to wait about a month until you get new updates. So you always get, latest and greatest changes. As you've seen, it's really readable code. I'm going to show you a live demo of Espresso test, and you see how easy actually Espresso is readable. Another part of it, the API relatively small, so it's not like huge set of APIs. You can learn like 3 classes and maybe 2 dozen of methods. So you can be very productive in a very short period of time. And also, you can optimize them. So they open for customization. Unlike other frameworks where you have to write a lot of things, in your own code, here you can actually upgrade their APIs for the matchers, which is, I think, amazing thing. And another thing which I think Espresso kills all other frameworks out there, it's a speed. It's extremely fast for one simple reason. It is running on UI thread with the UI of the application, meaning this, there is no waits, such as like in frameworks Appium, to slow down your test when you wait for something. It's going to go with the speed of your application. And another great, I think, feature of Espresso is integrated to Android Studio. So you will be in the same environment as the developers. For the matter of fact, you will be in the same code base as developers, because like I said, Espresso does not exist as part of the Android SDK. So Espresso major benefit, as I mentioned earlier, is that the instrumentation test run on a separate thread, right? The old instrumentation test. And you can see I have to put sleeps in order to wait for certain elements to exist. While the Espresso framework, you can see here, run on the same thread, and that's why it's ultimate fast, so you don't have to wait for anything. It's going to go in the speed of the application. So what is Espresso main formula? How you write tests in Espresso? And it's extremely simple. On view, so let's say view like some section of your screen, and there is ID view matcher like on the view button, right? Let's say button on the screen. You perform action such as click, right? And then you check if there's something happen, like if you click the button, search happen, right? And you can search results. So you see, this is declarative dot annotation, gives you ability to write your Java code in readable way. So there's literally 3 things: on view matcher, on then view action, and view assertion. So if you look at this page, this is it. This is all test methods that are consist of the Espresso APIs. So you can see on top the same formula that I mentioned before. It's extremely easy to learn in terms of the manipulation, right? So again, matchers will help you to find something, action will perform those things on those views it found, and assertion will make assertion if something happened, right? Really, really simple set of APIs. This is like a cheat sheet, you can Google it, I mean, it's always there for you. So view matchers, like you see like here, on view with our ID my view, or let's say like on view with the text click me, or on view all off. So all the methods you see here in between with ID, with text, all off is part of the Hamcrest, right? The framework that's been there in Java forever. And Espresso team in Google decided to use it because it's much easier to write and understand what's going on and much more readable, right? Same thing with the view actions, right? On view, you perform click. On a view something, like let's say on view some list view, list item, you perform type text password, or like text field, right? Or if you want to scroll to, with those people who use Appium before, you have to write your own like scroller APIs. Here's very simple. You can scroll to any view, so it will scroll automatically to that view until it finds it. And then you can chain calls right here to long click it. So you don't have to write 2 separate things, like one line, perform scroll to, and next line, you on the same element on the view you are perform long click. So you can chain calls, and it saves a lot of space. And assertions, obviously, they're also built into the framework. You do not have to write your own assert to methods like the Java assertion methods, although you can. but not mandatory. Here you say on view check matches, right? On view check does not exist, or check is below, or check matches on overlaps. So assertions are very readable, and they are also built into the framework, which I think is amazing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So another great thing about Espresso that a lot of frameworks not allow you, for those people who come with XUI test framework for the IES or Appium, you have to go with the scenario-based approach. You have to enter into the activity, which is the main screen of application, like login, and then you have to go through login in order to perform certain things, and then you have to log out, and then again, next step, you have to start with login. Espresso has the power, right? Has the power to start application from any screen, because in Android, a lot of screens are separate activities. So activity is the synonym for the screen in the context of Android terminology. So you can start your application on search screen and completely bypass other screens, right? So that ability you can put in the before and after statements, right? In the before and after hooks, in order for certain tasks to start on certain screens right away. I think this is amazing feature which allows you to speed up your test, right? And only validate things that are necessary. Okay, I think this is a great feature that other frameworks are lacking. So Espresso has other patterns like other frameworks. Page object model, very famous from the web, right? Also implemented here. So you can create new page login, and then you create methods, enter username, enter password, and login, right? So the test becomes much easier to read and maintain, and you hide it in separate classes. So page patterns also supported pretty well with Espresso, very easy to write in Java, just like in other frameworks, and tests become real maintainable and readable. So if you want to learn Espresso, right, we have a great opportunity for that, right? Let me show you. So we're going to go to fun parts. So for those people, probably most of you already received the invitation. We have the bootcamp starting next Thursday at 8 p.m. So we still have a bunch of seats available. So feel free if you'd like to register to learn Espresso together. It's going to be 7 sessions. And we're going to go not only on the simple things, we're going to go on the things like such as work with the how to write custom matches, for instance, if there's something doesn't exist. We're going to start with Espresso 3.0, which will release literally this month, which is the latest and greatest Espresso. We're going to teach you things such as idling resources. So for instance, things like networking calls happening on separate thread, and then UI still goes fast, but then you have to wait for something come from the network. You can actually idle resource and then continue with UI. So we're going to cover advanced topics, how to work with data providers, recycle views, different components of Android. And most importantly, you'll realize after this bootcamp, most of you will have ability to become a developer, Android developer. So this is like, think about this, Espresso is the gate into development. A lot of you know the manual testing is almost dead, it's gone, forget about it. You're never gonna get a job in that field anymore. Test automation is a transition, and Espresso is the ideal transition into the native world of Android development, because you will be in the same environment as developers. Let's say Appium is great framework if you want to keep your tester job. Let's say if you want to be always a tester, and Appium was in like black box automation, right? Just automating your actions, right? And then you can write in Java, Python, Ruby, God knows, any programming language. That's the power of Appium, right? It gives you ability. But then Espresso has that opportunity for anybody who wants to, let's say, make a next step. Because in my career, not only here at Tinder, but at Expedia and other small gigs that I worked before, those people who start working with Espresso in about 1 year became developers, because you will be right on the line with developers. That's the difference. So again, this bootcamp for those people who are thinking for how to jump to development, Espresso is a gateway for this. This is a gateway for the next job, for the next career step. So let me show you Espresso. I left the sweet part for the last thing, right? So this is actually the Android Studio. I'm not going to go in great details because a lot of people who probably on this bootcamp already have seen Java before and work with IntelliJ. So Android Studio is actually an extension of IntelliJ, so it looks exactly the same as IntelliJ, plus minus a couple buttons here for the Android. Okay, so let me start Genymotion. Genymotion is a emulator for the Android. Again, I'm not a big fan of using Genymotion. In the class, we'll use real device, but for demos like this, for the webinar, I think it's a great tool to use. So it's a virtual device, and I'm going to start Android virtual device here. And give me 1 second, continue, that's fine. So let me show you how the test. So first of all, the application code is also here, by the way. Espresso is just the package which is here, but the application code is also here. So if you look at the the structure of this, there's Gradle file for building purposes, right, of application. There is app folder where you can have build source Android test, but also there is a main, right, and there is a code for the application. Here, as you can see, like home activity. This is Android code for this application. I'm going to show you on the test. So my point I try to make, you're going to live in the same workspace with the app as a developers, right? And then you can interact with those screens. So activities are the screens, as I mentioned before, from your Espresso test. Not a lot of frameworks allows you to go inside, right, and do things like, for instance, let me give you a great example where Espresso is going to be very powerful. Control the experiments, right? You can control pretty much any transition from the screen to screen, any data comes in the application, you can do anything on the fly, which is, like I said, you will be surprised how fast you become like familiar with the code base while running Espresso. But let's go to Android test. Let's go to Espresso login test, and I'm going to show you example how the test, let's see, sign up test, something really easy example. Here we go. This is amazing. Okay, so this test right here, I'm going to highlight on the screen, is called user sign up persona, info verify required file are required. When you try to enter information into the fields when you sign up for the new account in any application, if you do not fill required fields and leave them empty and press the next button, you're going to get the error say those fields are mandatory, fill them in, right? So I purposely put a 5-second sleep here, so everybody can see how fast it is. So I delayed for the purpose, so people can see what's happening. If I remove this 5-second sleep, it's going to be so fast, you're not going to even see what's happening on the screen. And then once I verify that all this fields required, I'm going to actually fill them in and verify that actually everything is working. So the amazing thing about, look at how code is written. On view, with ID, RID button next. Perform scroll to, you see chain calls, and perform click. See, everybody that not even familiar with Java or even Espresso APIs can be like, oh, I understand what's going on, right? I look for the button with ID button next. For those people who never actually used it before, so let me run it first, and I'm going to show you how actually tests are written in a few seconds. So I'm going to run this test. And by the way, you don't have to write any boilerplate code like you do in Appium, like thousands of lines just to make sure it works. Start server, stop server. Here it works really simple. All I have to do, see, this is like how it works. And this is it. So it installs application by default. There is no code they have to write to install application, delete application, do all this management. It does it for you out of the box. It runs all the commands of the box. Because it's native, and it does all the heavy lifting out of the box. So again, let me run it again. It was so fast we missed the first part. So I'm going to run again. Now let's see that. See, it just said that those fields should be required. Okay, see, those required fields, and that's it, test passed. So if I remove this 500 milliseconds, you're not going to see even the first part. If I delete this part right here, I'm going to run it again, and you will see that speed runs down. That's it. Really, really fast. So a lot of people wondering, like, how do you find these resource IDs in Android? So in Android, there is a bunch of tools, not only one, that are available to find the layout of your application. So you can use UI Automator Viewer, but before that you have to launch your application under test, which is Android testing in my case. So first you launch it, and then what do? You run UI Automator Viewer, which is part of the Android SDK, part of the package. And then you can take a snapshot of entire layout. So you can see that here you can navigate and see different resource IDs. Let me stretch the screen so everybody can see that. So for instance, for the email, you can see edit email right here. This is actually resource ID starting from here, right? And that's the one you use in Espresso. So whenever you write test, you can actually look at the hierarchy viewer, right, of entire layout for this layer, and can see each resource ID and manipulate it. If you don't have resource ID, you can actually work with the classes, and you can write queries for certain elements as well. So there's not only one way to find by IDs. The good thing about resource IDs in Android, they're unique. They're assigned to each element as the best practice, but sometimes there could be two elements that have the same resource ID. So you can find a way to make it unique, right? So, and another good thing about here that you can see that for the matcher, right, check matcher has error required, right? So it finds the error text, and you can see that that particular resource has resource string input error required for that particular string. So everything extremely easy to do in terms of organization, writing, and reading tests. And I think this is like makes the framework a step ahead of other frameworks. We have to write a lot of spaghetti code that has to do a lot of heavy lifting, right? So you can see that everything is concise here. For the page object, it looks exactly the same, it's just more wrapper into the class. So for the page objects, a lot of people probably are aware, I've seen names on this webinar and people who are gonna watch it. So like for instance, personal info page has all the methods for each of these fields. So it's even more readable, right? Personal page, same test, first name, Matt, last name, Carol, right? So go to first name, you can see just the method that does exactly the same thing. So you are obfuscating, hiding that information, encapsulating separate class. Very easy to write, and then return that particular object of this element as a part of this class object every time you access it. So writing page object model makes tests even more readable, like here, right? So like I said, there's not rocket science. A lot of people get scared of espresso. I've seen a lot of people, they hear word espresso, they run away. To be honest, the percentage used in the market of espresso is only 3%. And the reason is because it's done mostly by developers. Because once the testers see espresso, they're like chickens, like, oh, no way. This is native, I don't know Android, I have no idea what to do. But for those people who are brave enough and jump into this, there was like, why I didn't switch earlier? Like I said, Appium has one advantage. Appium Underhood uses UI Automator. So it's good for people who do not know Java. It's good for people who would like to do black box testing. It's amazing. And Appium was more transparent, and today 73% of all mobile testing done in Appium. But unfortunately, it's about 3-4 times slower. And unfortunately, it is not going to give you opportunity to go move on, become a developer, right? Because you're still in the testing world. Espresso, obviously, you have to be a little bit more proficient in Java in terms of understanding like how Android function, understand more Android functionality, which we're going to start teaching. Actually, the class teach about Android first and then Espresso, because if you don't understand what's the Android in terminology, you won't be able to understand what's Espresso. But Espresso gives you the next step to go and and become developers. So again, your choice. I decided to do this webinar, and for those people who couldn't make the mine, I have a great video. I'm going to share. I'm going to send email with the video that I recorded where I compared Espresso with Appium, and people again can decide either want to stay with Appium or they want to pursue the Espresso for Android. It's all up to you guys. But again, I just decided to show you, so at least to remove that fear, right? That fear that a lot of people have to do that step. Somebody writing a question, cannot wait for the class. All right. Yeah, thank you. We're going to start it next week. It's going to be a very small class, probably around 10 people, which is, I think, great. This is the first time we're going to teach Espresso. I hope that within 6 months, a lot of people will start using it. And again, I'm hoping for those folks who are ready to become devs, who said enough is enough. I'm done with the tester. I want to become an Android developer. This is the step. All right. Again, I like both frameworks. We use Appium, we use Espresso. It's just different purposes, right? Espresso more integration test. right? Remember this. You are on the road for the success as to become developer. Saying this, anybody have any questions? Let's go to Q&A quickly. Anybody can write question, I can answer that. I would give like a minute for people to, if you have any questions about Espresso or the bootcamp. If not, you always know my email, Facebook group. You can always post any questions. For those people who attend the webinar, I'm going to throw a 25% coupon again. I'm going to send email to everybody who signed up. I'm going to send the video for those people who signed up and couldn't attend, so they don't feel abandoned, and make sure they see the video as well. It starts next Thursday. Please, I would like to see more people to jump into the world, and I hope that all of you become successful and rich. All right, guys? Saying this, going once, going twice. Any other questions? If not, I would call it out for tonight. I wish everybody a great weekend, and for those folks who sign up, I'll see you next Thursday online. You guys take care.